Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly practical, step-by-step guide from our source material on exactly how to architect a perfect, full day of prayer and fasting. If you've ever wanted to dedicate a whole day to spiritual growth but kind of hit a wall wondering, what do I actually do with all those hours? Well, this is exactly what you need. So let's just dive right in.
We're going to walk through this whole thing chronologically. We'll start with preparing the blueprint, lay down the morning foundation, tap into the power of worship, master the art of persistence, work through the afternoon cycle, and finally, look at what happens beyond the fast.
Okay, step 1, preparing the blueprint.
So the framework actually begins the night before. You eat your last meal, dinner, and then the clock starts. The real heavy lifting kicks off bright and early. You wake up at 5 a.m. to pray. Yes, 5 a.m. Why so early? Because the house is completely quiet, right? Nobody else is up yet. After that initial quiet time, you take a little break to get yourself together or maybe take care of the kids, and then at 8 a.m., you officially dedicate your day. Finally, you cross that finish line and break the fast at 6 p.m.
Now, during that 8 a.m. dedication in your prayer room, you absolutely have to state your why. You don't just sit there in silence. You speak from the heart and tell God exactly what you're doing. Are you looking for a breakthrough or a miracle? Are you just trying to draw closer to God? Maybe you're seeking victory over some stubborn sins, or just asking for strength and wisdom. Whatever it is, pinning down that purpose right at the start sets your trajectory for the entire day.
All right, moving right along into step 2, the morning foundation.
This block is all about focusing entirely on Jesus, which means setting boundaries is absolutely crucial. The source is incredibly strict about removing distractions here. The recommendation? Put your phone on silent and physically hide it in another room. No joke. And avoid social media entirely. Interestingly enough, the blueprint even says to avoid watching other people's sermons. Obviously, sermons are usually great, but this specific day is about giving your time fully to Jesus, not a screen.
By 9 a.m., the blueprint shifts gears from prayer to deep, deep reading of full books of the Bible. The guide uses Isaiah as a prime example. And this isn't just skimming, You're actively hunting for and highlighting promises of God's help and deliverance. It's about filling your mind with the exact encouragements you're going to need to get through the fast. Hitting 10 a.m., we pivot to step 3, the power of worship.
Let's be real. After an hour of intense reading, you might naturally feel a little drowsy, so worship is there to totally revitalize you. You spend this hour singing spiritual songs that glorify God's power and goodness, and as you sing, it completely shifts your perspective. The source emphasizes that concepts like God's goodness and the reality of heaven actually start to feel tangibly real to you, right there in the room.
To really underscore this, the guide points to the biblical story of Paul and Silas. As the story goes, they were locked up in jail, right? But when they started singing spiritual songs, the prison doors literally opened up, and the Lord set them free. The author presents this as hardcore proof that music isn't just filler. It's a highly active, genuinely powerful part of worship.
So, as we hit 11 a.m., we're back to the prayer room for step 4, the art of persistence.
Now, if you're sitting there at 11 a.m. thinking, I already said everything I needed to say at 8 a.m., don't sweat it. The source heavily normalizes praying for the exact same thing over and over. Just look at the biblical examples they provide. Elijah prayed 7 times for rain before the answer came. Daniel prayed for 21 days straight, and Jesus caught about a widow who relentlessly badgered a judge until she got justice. The point is, true persistence brings results. So go ahead, pray about it again.
The guide also acknowledges a very real, very human problem. Your mind is going to wander. Out of nowhere, you'll start thinking about your grocery list or a video game. Well, the source frames this as an active attack and advises you to combat it by taking authority. It explicitly suggests binding what they describe as demonic spirits of a wandering mind, actively asking God to pull your mind, spirit, and soul right back into the present moment.
This 11 a.m. hour is also the designated time to tackle really stubborn sins. The guide specifically mentions things like pornography, masturbation, and sexual immorality. A lot of people struggle to break free from these normally, but the promise here is that through this intense, targeted level of prayer and fasting, it's actually possible to experience complete victory and see those chains fully broken.
By noon, you might feel like you're totally running on empty. But that brings us to step 5, the afternoon cycle. From 12 p.m. all the way to 5:30 p.m., you basically put your morning routine on a loop. It's a marathon for sure, but it's a super elegant way to handle that long afternoon stretch. You spend 1 hour reading your Bible. Then you spend an hour worshiping and praising. Then you spend the following hour in persistent prayer. You just cycle through this evenly, keeping your focus totally locked on Jesus.
You keep that loop going until exactly 5:30 p.m. Then you reserve the final 30 minutes of your day to officially conclude the fast. This half hour is super important. It's used to ask for the strength you'll need to avoid relapsing into worldly habits the second you walk out of your prayer room. Because let's face it, it's pretty easy to be holy when you're locked in a quiet room all by yourself. You need the real strength for when you get back to normal life.
Which perfectly tees up our final step, Step 6, Beyond the Fast. The source totally gets that not everyone can take a whole day off to stay home, so there's a very practical alternative. While the perfect day fast means you're totally disconnected at home, you can absolutely do a regular fast while you're at work or school. The rule for that is simple. Cut out all entertainment, read your Bible every single chance you get, and dedicate your lunch break and your early mornings entirely to prayer.
Now, a quick heads up. Expect your physical body to feel incredibly tired at the end of this. I mean, you've been praying, reading, and singing for hours on end with zero food. But the payoff is that your spiritual man will be immensely strengthened. There's just one catch. You can't do this intense fast and then go 2 days without praying. You have to maintain regular, daily prayer afterward to hold on to the strength you just built up.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer is that deep, transformative spiritual discipline, it doesn't just happen by accident. It requires highly intentional structure. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question based on the source material. How are you going to architect your time today?